Hey, coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, we've got a great show for you. Charlie Wooten. You know him? He is an amazing amateur radio operator, extra class. He's a great broadcast engineer, award-winning, and Charlie's going to spend an hour with us talking to us about cool things in amateur radio and some great advice for your transmitter sites for this summer, and he knows about it. Coming up on TWiRT. This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by the new Ruby console from Lavo. See Lavo in your future at lavo.com/TWiRT. And by Omnia 11, because great sound matters most. Now shipping with the new GeForce Dynamics engine as standard. Omnia 11, great sound matters most. Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to the light bulb at the top of the tower. And we're going to talk about all that in between on this show. Our show is brought to you by the folks at Lavo and the folks at the Telos Alliance. We'll be telling you about them during the course of the show. Unfortunately, Chris Tobin got called away at the last minute and couldn't be here. He is engineering a show for the governor of New Jersey. They're doing a radio show on WBGO there, I believe. So Chris is taking care of the governor. So we'll get a report from Chris next week. But I have a great guest on this show. This is truly, an engineer's engineer in so many ways. He's been on the show before. Let's welcome in Charlie Wooten from Panama City, Florida. Welcome in, Charlie.
Thank you, Kirk. I wish the audio was better, but we'll have to live with it.
Hey, it's okay. And we'll chat about that for in just a second. Charlie, you are fresh back from Hamvention, right?
Right. That's correct.
Are they still calling it Hamvention? That's the official name?
Yeah, they still call it Hamvention. A lot of people just call it Dayton. They say Dayton.
Yeah. Well, they moved it to a new venue, didn't they?
Yeah, they moved it to the Xenia. It's a Xenia County or the Greene County Fairgrounds, which are in Xenia, Ohio. It's only about a 20-minute drive from Dayton, just east of Dayton.
Now, traditionally,
it's a lot better than a piece of crap Hara Marina used to be at.
that Hara Marina was awful.
Oh, it's terrible.
Traditionally, it's supposed to rain most of the time during
That's
Hamvention.
a tradition.
Yep. Did it?
And it did.
Gosh.
But it was still good. There was plenty of dry time.
We've got some pictures to show. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Let's chat about actually this topic that just came up, top of the hour, because engineers like yourself, like me, we're used to having systems that we have some control over. And more importantly, we're used to having systems where we build in ways to monitor at important steps along the way. So we can tell if the audio is good at the output of, let's say, the phono preamp back in those days, or at the output of the CD player, or at the output of some preamp on the board, or some bus on the board, or maybe the preview bus, or at the distribution amp, or at the input to the audio processor, or the output of in other words, there's lots of places we can check the audio, leaving us not a whole lot of guesswork as to where a problem might go once we check, divide and conquer. But today's modern PC-based communication systems, like you and I are using right now, leave a lot to be desired, don't they?
They do, because I've got a microphone plugged directly into a computer. Nothing special, and then it's going through the internet, no matter where, no telling where it's going before it gets to you. And apparently I've got a bad codec in my computer, or something's going on strange, but I'll know not to use this computer for future webcasts.
Well, for those watching the finished produced version of this podcast, your audio is actually a lot better, I think, than it was. There's a bit of a noise floor, and this is for those of you listening. Maybe you're not listening at a loud enough level to be able to hear this, but whenever Charlie speaks, there's a bit of a wideband noise that comes up, and then when he stops speaking, this noise goes away. Now, it's going up and going away because somewhere in the chain, I believe, at the GFQ network, they're using a noise gate. So when the audio falls below a certain level, a certain threshold, there's an automatic circuit that goes ahead and turns it on down. And that's what
Right.
in audio processing, we call that gating or downward expansion. And it's used on lots of things, from drums on stage to mics. If you've got a noisy room, we use gating or downward expansion to, if nobody's talking in a mic, we're going to automatically, cut it down. And so if you're listening to the show, you'll hear a little bit of that on Charlie's mic. Honestly, you'll hear a little bit of that on my mic, but it might be at a lower level because I've got noise here in this room. I got a radio in a couple rooms away, but my mic, I've got some built-in audio processing. Whenever I shut up, it drops my level by about 10 dB. So anyway, that's a pretty standard feature of audio mic processing. But if you're in a really noisy environment and that gating always says, no, there's good audio here, I'm going to keep it open. Or in this case, you make the gating aggressive. If Charlie's not talking, it's going to knock the level down. Then you're going to get this modulating effect on the noise. Now, we're talking about all this, and Charlie, because of today's modern PC systems, he's not hearing any of this. Right?
Okay, because it's like what we used to call a 4-wire circuit. It's transmit on one set of wires and comes back on another set. I'm only hearing what you're sending to me. I'm not hearing what I'm sending to you.
Exactly. And we're not sending you back to you because that would be delayed. We're sending Charlie. We're sending Charlie a mix minus. I'm hearing a mix minus in my ear. So I don't hear me going back to the GFQ network and back to me. That would be unbelievably confusing. And but because of USB being what it is, we just don't have ways to monitor this very well. So, or at all, I should say. It's a little bit of a frustration, when we have situations like this.
By the way, let me say this.
What is that?
This is a piece of crap.
Oh no, what is it?
It's a Radio Shack. Let me get it up here. Radio Shack microphone XLR to USB adapter. It don't work.
Yeah. Actually,
I found that.
Go ahead.
I found that back. I had bought it at when the Radio Shack was going out of business.
Mm-hmm.
I bought this thing for like $3, and I said, "Dang, that's a great thing." It's got an XLR female on it. It's got a USB cable. I plugged it into the computer. The computer loaded it and acted like it was going to work. And 2 out of the 3 things got a green check, but one of them said device failed. And so that's how I was going to, when we first talked, I was going to use that to get my audio into the computer, but it don't work.
Charlie, you and I are
that's Radio Shack went out of business. That's different.
Well, you and I are a lot alike. We know that there are ways that you can, we know that electronics can be cheap. It's possible to have cheap electronics that works very well, does the job adequately. And ham radio, we're looking for that too. We sometimes, we buy things in ham radio, amateur radio, that are pretty inexpensive and get the job done. And actually, while you were switching from Skype over to vMix call, Charlie, I was talking to Suncast and I was mentioning, I've tried out a few of these really inexpensive mic to USB converters. A few years ago, I bought a cable that basically had a sound card built into the plug end where the USB was. So it was just an XLR on one end, a USB on the other, and built in was the side here. For example, here's a sound card right here, and I bought it for $1 from somewhere in China, and I fully expect that it just sounds awful. But I don't. I mean, it's awful. It sounds fine for people who don't know about audio quality, but for Charlie, for you and me, it wouldn't be adequate. But if we were doing some ham radio stuff, it actually might be okay for the task. So anyway, what I was going to say is, over the years, I've gone through a number of different mic to USB devices. The first one that worked well was a Shure X2U, and it was $150 or so, even though it's just a little bullet-sized thing. Then I used a Focusrite box for a while. I've got 2 of them, one I carry on the road and one here in the office, and it was pretty darn clean, but it was $200. And now I'm using an M Audio M-Track 2x2, and it's also very clean. I've recorded audiobooks with it and things like that, but it's also $150, $170 or so. So it appears to me that below it's not possible to get a good mic pre into USB without spending, at least $100.
I agree.
So,
I agree. And I have tried several of these USB audio things and haven't been able to find an inexpensive one yet. But I do have like I was telling you earlier when we were on the phone. I've got this Henry makes a USB to audio matchbox.
Sure,
and it is fabulous. It is absolutely fabulous. Now the sucker cost almost $400, but it's great. I mean, it works great. It comes XLR in, XLR out. You can plug it in any computer. It will automatically load. No magic black magic drivers or going out to the internet. It recognizes it as a common USB codec, and they work great.
I want to say that the late Bill Sachs had a small hand, maybe a big hand, in designing that, along with Henry and the Henry engineering guy, Hank Landsberg.
Yeah,
I think that's a project that they worked on together.
I probably have a half a dozen of those Henry boxes sitting around that I use for various things. They just come in handy, and they're very, very clean. And like I said, there's no problem interfacing them. It's the old, remember the old Windows 98 plug and play, and you said, yeah, sure. Well, this is like, that's one of the few devices I have ever seen. It's literally plug and play.
And there are some out there. My friends at the Telos Alliance, we designed a product that we actually never sold. We never produced in quantity, and it was an audio. It's an external sound card, basically USB and professional quality in and out. But it also had contact closures. It had contact closures going in, none going out. But it was designed for a purpose. But honestly, we couldn't build that thing. We were going to have to charge $900 for that box.
Wow!
And just because Telos doesn't make things in the quantity that this is made, and we don't make things honestly crappy like this is made. So this might work okay for a short time. Who's the
you
king?
Dropped it a minute ago. You dropped it a minute ago. It may not work anymore.
That's right. There's a guy who we both know on Facebook who is like the king of finding cheap stuff that actually does kind of work, and that's Dana Popolo. He finds like these $15 headphone amps that you do a couple mods, and you've got a fabulous headphone amp that's really good. But I don't know. I don't have time to do that. If I'm going to do that, I'm just going to look to Dana. Hey, so what's the cheap way to do this? Find out what it is. So hey, let's tell you what. Let's go ahead and talk about Hamvention, because you're just back from that, and I think you had some pictures from that as well.
Yeah, I've got some pictures.
I didn't give
whatever water they happened to gotten loaded there. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I just pasted a few onto an email.
I sent that. I made a photo album and sent it along to Suncast. I'm not sure if he's had a chance to load that yet or not. So while we're chatting here, if a picture comes in, we'll see it. Suncast. Oh, there we go. Okay, so
there we go.
Why we pick,
okay,
go ahead and pick out the first picture there, Suncast. If you don't mind full screen.
This is an annual event that is a group of hams. We're mainly contesters and DXers, and we meet at the Hooters in Dayton on Thursday afternoon. And we basically take over the Hooters, and we consume adult beverages, and we drink, and we have chicken wings. We have a good time. And I don't know if you can see, but on the left hand side of the picture, there's a guy with a black shirt. Well, just behind the guy with a black shirt, you can see a person with a pink shirt.
Yeah.
That's Paul Gentry, K9PG. He's from Chicago. He is the guy who is the organizer of this. And it happens every year. And it's something I usually get in on Thursday afternoon, fly in usually get there about 1:30, 2 o'clock. And this begins around 5. And this is one of the things that I always attend, and it's always a good time. There's a certain amount of beer consumed by most of the attendees at Dayton.
Charlie, you mentioned contesting, and before we go to the next picture, I'd like to ask you about that a bit. I'm a ham operator myself, got a general license. I've never done any contesting. I don't know the first thing about it. Are there some resources? Are there some YouTube videos or something I could watch to begin to understand what contesting is about?
Sure. There's actually each year in Dayton, there is a contest university, and it's a 1 day or 2 day event where hams who are interested in contesting can attend, and there's a workbook. There are probably 10 or 12 different instructors that go into the various aspects of contesting, and that's held at the Dayton Crown Plaza, where all the contesters and DXers stay during the Hamvention. We basically take over that hotel, and if that was something that a ham was interested in getting into, I would strongly recommend looking at attending Contest University. A contest is basically a operating event where you operate for either 24 or 48 hours, and some people don't do the whole thing, but if you're serious about it, you might. And you try to contact as many people who are in the contest all over the world, or whatever. It could be a state, it could be. We just got through running the Florida QSO party, which is a contest. And the idea of that particular contest is for you to work as many stations in Florida as you can, and try to work a station in all 67 counties in Florida. And when you do something like that, where you work all of the multipliers or counties or states or whatever it happens to be, that's called a sweep. And it's a big deal to get a sweep. And there are extra awards for doing that. But there are all kinds of things you can get in with contesting. There's VHF contesting. There's UHF contest. There's even a moon bounce contest once a year.
Oh.
So I mean, there's all kinds of ways that you can do it.
Huh. And is it fundamentally about making as many contacts as you can according to interesting rules that are set up for that particular contest?
Yeah, and each contest varies, but according to what kind of contest it is, a DX contest, for instance, you would want to work as many countries and what we call zones as you can. And because you not only get a point for the contact, you then say you make 100 contacts, okay, and then you worked 30 countries. Well, and you worked 30 zones, okay, so your score is based on not just 100 contacts. You made 30 zones, so you get to multiply your score by 30, and then 30 countries, you get to multiply it again. So that's how you come out with so each time you work a new country, that's not just making you 1 point, that's making you additional points based on the number of contacts you have by multiplication factor. And there are big contest stations. I don't know if we have the capability here or not, if he could bring up a website, but we'll see. I don't know if we can or not. But I mean, there are huge contest stations that are set up just for the sole purpose of doing contests. They're not used for day-to-day talking, just what we call, what we call rag chewing or whatever. They're just used. They're built for the specific purpose of contesting.
Gotcha. Wow. That's a whole world, man. It's a whole world. And
there are many different aspects of ham radio, like the other night, night before last, I had to work at my transmitter site up at Fountain, Florida. And I've got an ICOM 5100 in my car. It's in my company truck. It's a dual band radio. It'll do D-Star, but that doesn't have anything to do with a satellite. But there's satellites up there. And I happen to have an app on my phone. It tells me when these ham satellites are going to be coming over my particular location. Well, at 1:48 a.m. Yesterday morning, here comes AO91. So I get on and sitting in my truck at my transmitter site using a whip it's about 17 inches long. It's a loaded dual band UHF VHF antenna. I was talking to the satellite and talked to people. I could hear myself on the downlink very clearly. It's just, you can talk to people in your app on your phone. You're looking at your phone and you're saying, okay, here it comes, boom, and you'll hear the signal, and you'll see the circle, the circle on your map, and you can work anybody within that circle as it passes. I've worked stations in Central America, Puerto Rico, Canada, many states. But it's, thinking about it, you're transmitting on 435 megahertz, which is UHF, which is line of sight, but you're talking thousands of miles away, but you're actually going up to the satellite and back down on another frequency. It's a repeater, basically, is what it is. But it's you're going up on 70 centimeters, which is 435 megahertz, and coming back down on 140. On this particular one was 145.96 megahertz. That's another completely different thing about ham radio. There are all kinds of stuff that you can do.
Do you remember the name of that app? I like the fact that you can see the circle of coverage as it.
I've got it on my phone here.
I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, it's called HamSat.
HamSat. Okay.
HamSat. Yeah. I don't know if.
Oh yeah.
You can see
sure.
Like right now. Let me get it back. I'm just rotating the Earth. There's nothing right now. The circle, the delays got me here. There we go.
I know.
The circle is around where I am, but there's not a pass near me right now. But on another page of the app, which I'll show you, it gives you the times and dates and exact times when you acquire the satellite, when you're at best signal, and then when you lose the satellite. So you can be ready to go when the time comes. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
And it doesn't take any, I don't have any special satellite antenna or anything like that. It's just the whip sticking on a magnetic mount on top of my truck.
Yeah, I thought it used to take one of those cross-polarized dual-band handheld Yagi things.
Not anymore. No.
And that's because of better satellites or better radios on the ground, or both?
I think it's because of better satellites, because it's just, when you think about it, it's line of sight. It doesn't take any power. Now, granted, you can use a little handheld Yagi, and the only reason they're cross-poled is because you've got two frequencies you're dealing with. So you put that's just to separate the two Yagis apart from each other. That really doesn't have anything to do with polarization per se.
Right.
You've got a dual band. You got holding a stick there with two Yagis on it, one on 70 centimeters and one on 2 meters. But you can even use a walkie-talkie to talk on these satellites. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot.
Wow. And so could a cheap Baofeng radio do this as well? That kind of split? Don't know.
I'm not sure it would have the. You really need to be able to hear yourself at the same time. With a walkie-talkie, when you're transmitting, you're muting the speaker on your. So you might be able to do it with two Baofengs. I don't know, but
sure.
Might want to invest a little bit of radio there, Kirk.
Well, I've got some other ones too. I just just behind me over here. I do have some $400 or $500 handhelds as well as the Baofengs. Yeah. So all right. Hear you. Hey, we're going to look at more pictures here in just a minute. You're watching or listening to This Week in Radio Tech. It's Kirk Harnack along with Charlie Wooten. We've been talking about Hamvention. We got some more pictures to share from that, for some good times there. And then we're going to talk also about some broadcast engineering topics, including, late night transmitter visits and, some of the things that are important to Charlie in terms of maintenance, so he doesn't have to make unscheduled visits to transmitter sites, and what he's doing to get ready for a hot summer in the Florida Panhandle. That's coming right up. Our show is brought to you in part by our friends at Lavo. Let's hear from them and be right back.
There has probably never been a better time in history to buy a new radio mixing console. Today's consoles are more sophisticated than ever, with more features and functions than you can shake a stick at. But have you noticed how complicated they are? There's a sea of knobs and switches and displays and buttons. Some of them look like you might need a pilot's license to do your show. Well, a board doesn't have to be complicated to be powerful. Just look at the new Ruby mixing surface from Lavo. The first thing you notice is how smooth and streamlined it is. Ruby has lots of cool tech, but what it doesn't have is that confusing ocean of buttons that clutter things up. Now, we all know that there are some console features the jock only uses once in a while, so why dedicate controls to them? Ruby fixes this problem by moving those once-in-a-blue-moon controls to a touch-sensitive, customizable GUI that happily shares screen space with your other studio software, helping you fight control room clutter. Thanks to this design innovation, talent that use Ruby produce smoother shows with less errors. Controls that are used the most fall naturally to hand, while functions that rarely need adjustment are easily controlled with just a couple of clicks in the context-sensitive GUI. And Ruby has cool features you won't find on other boards, like Auto Mix, an intelligent gain writing function that guarantees the perfect mix for multi-mic morning shows and call-in segments. Dual mode snapshots that instantly switch the motorized faders between on-air and production modes, and enough DSP and I/O options to make even your pro sound pals green with envy. And because quality is as important to Lavo as it is to you, every console is proudly built to fanatically precise standards at Lavo's own factory in Germany. If you're ready to declutter your control room, do yourself a favor. Check out the new Ruby and the other cool Lavo radio tech at www.lawo.com/TWiRT.
Thanks a lot to Lavo for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. And if you use that website exactly, lavo.com/TWiRT, then they'll take you right to the radio products section at Lavo. So thanks again to Lavo for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Hey, it's episode 396 of TWiRT. We're talking with Charlie Wooten, who is a world-renowned, award-winning engineer in Panama City, Florida, and living the life of Riley there, taking care of some radio stations and exercising his privileges as probably the Charlie. What license do you have? It's the highest you can possibly get, right?
I have the extra class.
Okay. So hey, let's jump right back into these pictures from Dayton Hamvention. If our producer Suncast can pop the next one up, there we go. What are we looking at here?
We're looking at this is a typical commercial display at Dayton. This particular company is from Italy, and all they sell is keys for telegraph keys for either electronic keys or straight keys. You see some old right there at the bottom of the screen. The second key in is just a regular old straight key. They're highly machined, very precisely made, really works of art, mechanical works of art. And a couple of my buddies there looking at some. There's Jim K1IR and Marty KC1CWF. They're looking at a couple of keys there. This company is called Vigali. They come from Italy every year, and they sell a lot of keys. Now these keys aren't cheap. They run in the $200 to $400 range. They're
wow.
Quite expensive.
And the ones that aren't straight are called what?
Well, they're used for what's called an electronic key. It's where you move your hand left to right to make the dits and the das, and they're made electronically. So it's just a pad. We call them paddles. I guess you could call it.
That's right.
What a lot of people.
So the quality machining just gives you an excellent feel, so it just comes naturally to hand to hit the dits and das.
You just touch using your hand. Some people use their thumb and the index finger, and other people do it different ways. But and they use the end of their finger or the middle of their finger or whatever. But it's something you just where each person has their own touch to the key.
What percentage of amateur radio communications is done with Morse code with keying?
Quite a bit more than you would think. Yeah, I mean, even though we have the new digital modes, we have this thing called FT8. I don't know if you've been keeping up with it, but it's a new.
I've heard of it.
It's a new mode. It's a digital mode that basically will communicate when you can't even hear the signal.
Right.
Literally,
right.
It's in the noise. It's in the noise, and it's there, but you can't demodulate it with the human ear, and even with some computer programs. But this is a new program, and they're using it to communicate long distances on bands that supposedly are closed, and they're open just a little bit, and so using this FT8 technology, they're able to operate, and it's the new darling, so to speak, on a lot of people. A lot of people complain because it's taken away from traditional ham radio, using voice and code and normal what we call teletype RTTY. But I've made one contact with FT8, and that's all I wanted to make. Yep, I can do that. Okay, let's go on to something else. But getting back to the original question, quite a bit of code we call CW, continuous wave. It's still being used by hams, and the contest. A lot of contests are code contests, and then there's also a voice or sideband or whatever you want to call it, phone counterpart contest on another weekend. They don't have usually contest. Well, some contests have both going on at the same time, but your big contests are separated between phone and CW, and you have them 2 different periods of time.
So I'd like to discuss for just a sec this concept you mentioned about FT8 and other digital modes. So ham radio started out with CW, continuous wave, dits and das, and people's ear had to be able to at least discern noise from a dit and from a da. And if you could discern just that, then you could get communications through, albeit at a rather slow speed, but apparently faster than texting on a cell phone. Then came voice modes. Now, for voice modes, you've got to have enough signal to noise to be able to understand, turn that into intelligible. What did he say, right? And so single sideband helped that out by just getting the intelligence through. And so there's AM modes. Of course, there's FM modes with repeaters and that kind of thing. I guess was your communication with the satellite over an FM repeater, right?
It was normal narrowband FM.
Yeah.
Using 5 kilohertz deviation.
But so the things we've been talking about just now require the human ear to be able to discern this. These digital modes, you don't have to. Your brain can't figure these out. Number one, and number two, the signals and noise apparently can be so bad that a computer with these fancy algorithms can figure out, there's some energy there. There's some energy over there. Let's put that together and figure out what was being sent. Is that essentially the essence of these digital modes?
That's basically it. Of course, before you had the digital modes, you had other modes that are still considered digital. You had radio teletype, which you could not demodulate with your ear, even though you used a demodulator to drive a printer or drive a computer to see what the person is sending in normal, what we call radio teletype or RTTY. But the newer these newer modes, there is no way you can demodulate it, and you can't even hear it. And in some cases, you can't even see it on a waterfall display on a receiver. I mean, they're just infinitesimal. There's just an infinitesimal amount of signal there, and it's amazing. It takes about 15 to 30 seconds to make a very short contact, because the speed in which the data is sent is very slow, and so you basically transmit, and then the other station knows to wait to a certain period of time, and then they start transmitting. So you actually have to have your clock synchronized. So all the clocks are synchronized. So some stations operate on the odd minutes, and the other station will operate on the even minute, and will start their transmission on the even. So that helps the software know, okay, now I need to start listening. But wow, I mean, it's amazing these new modes of transmission.
So, and of course, there's all kinds of other modes too. The slow scan television and maybe fast scan TV. There's all. So if you're looking for a hobby, you think, I'm going to do ham radio. Well, there's 1,000 choices in ham radio of things that you could do. Whatever flips your trigger, I suppose. Oh yeah. You can get into DX. I really that's one of the things I enjoy more than anything else is DX. That's looking and working all of the countries in the world. And there's only a couple that I haven't worked, to be precise, 2. So one day, I've even worked North Korea, but
in 2001. There was a guy over there working for the UN food program, and he was from Georgia, not Atlanta, Georgia, but the Georgia over by Russia, and he got permission to operate from North Korea, and I was one of the lucky ones to work him while he was there.
Wow,
that was quite a big deal. And, well, we've talked about some of this other stuff before. I think I've been on a couple of DXpeditions where I've actually gone to some locations and operated. Midway Island, which was probably the pinnacle of my whole ham radio hobby, was being able to go to Midway and operate from there, because you can't go to Midway. You have to have permission from the Fish and Wildlife Service to go to Midway.
Yeah.
And it was that was quite a experience. And I've been to Mozambique and a couple of other places.
Wow. So let's go to our next picture. If Suncast has that ready for us, we'll take a look. And
all right.
I know this guy. I know both of those guys.
Yeah. Well, this John is the iHeart engineer from Alaska. He works in Alaska, and we ran into each other at the in the exhibit area. Mm-hmm. So there were a couple of other iHeart engineers there. I saw Jellison, who lived there in Dayton. He lives in Dayton. Let's see, who else was there? Seemed like there was one more, but anyhow, there are two or three of the iHeart engineers that were there, and there are a lot of broadcasters there. There's a lot of, you'd be surprised at the amount of broadcast equipment that you see for sale out in the what we call the boneyard, where people set up, and it's like a big electronic garage sale outside. It's not just these exhibits for new stuff. There's an area that it's actually an athletic field that's set up, and that where people can set up tents, and they can sell their used equipment and other things there. And there's a lot of broadcast equipment shows up there.
Let's go on to the next picture, but I did notice that John was hilariously wearing a Hawaiian pineapple shirt, and he's from Alaska. So what's this pretty radio?
This is just a new Kenwood radio. And the reason I want to show this, I'm not a Kenwood person, but I own an ICOM 7800, and all my radios are ICOM, but this was an interesting radio. This is a new radio that Kenwood has, and it's one of their new radios and it was interesting. The reason I took this picture was because they've come out with a new radio, but they really haven't embraced SDR yet, which is software-defined radio. Everybody else is moving in the direction of software-defined radios, but they came out with this new radio here, but it's really not SDR-based, and I was kind of surprised. And that's really about all I had to say about it. And the only reason I took this picture is because one of my ham buddies in North Carolina says, give me a picture of that new Kenwood radio. And so I did. So, but the really hot item that was selling like hotcakes, there were people walking around with boxes in Dayton, were the ICOM 7300s. They dropped the price on them. You could pick up that radio, for a lot less than what it originally come out of the price. They had them there. One place had them for $950. And they cost a lot more than that. ICOM dropped the price on a couple of their radios. The 7610, they dropped the price on it significantly. And they're selling like hotcakes. And they're all SDR based. I bought me an SDR while I was up there. A little SDR about the size of a pack of matches, a little bit bigger than a pack of matches, box of matches, about the size of a kitchen matchbox, and then I bought the down up converter for it. So I basically have an SDR that will cover from DC to 1800 megahertz. I've yet to I plugged it in, make sure it was working, and downloaded the software for it. But I haven't had a chance to really play with it much since I got back. The other thing I bought was I bought me a paddle, a CW paddle, like we were talking about there a few minutes ago.
So I didn't realize the 7300, the 7610, I think you said, of course your 7800, these are all SDR designed, software defined radios inside?
But it's, probably maybe not the 7800 because it's a little bit older, but the 7610 and the 7300, and I think got a 7100. They're SDR based.
You know, we should do. It seems like we did a bit of an episode of TWiRT some years ago with Bob Holowenko from Canada, and he took us through some SDR basics, and I think we ought to revisit that. That's, you know, software defined radios are pretty interesting. They have very, very capable hardware, and then you tell the hardware what to do, and it's a radio, and it can be whatever kind of radio you want. Let's we got a couple more pictures. Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna say, I bought on eBay a SDR a while back for like $10, and it was a dongle, plugs into a USB.
Yep.
And there's the antenna for it. It's
they typically come with these little tiny whips, right?
Yeah, it's just a little whip.
Go. Yeah,
and I plugged it in. I can look at the local stations on it. It looks like a spectrum analyzer. The local NPR station is HD. I can see the HD shoulders on each side. It's pretty cool little box, but and it'll demod the audio. It's pretty good.
There is some software that is from Telos that is as of yet unreleased. We're just not sure where we're going to go with it, but a product called MPX Tool, and it's a whole FM mod monitor that uses an SDR, just like your little $10 USB plug-in, and it'll even record the whole FM band. You can record the whole FM band with the right SDR, or 2 megabit splotches of it, or 2 megahertz splotches of it, I should say, and then play them back later on. see what they did.
Yeah, they're using that in ham radio too. They have what they call skimmers, and you can actually. I've watched this before. You can play with them on the air. You can go call CQ or test or whatever. Send your call sign a couple of times, and on the DX cluster, you can all these skimmers all over the world. They're a bunch of them, hundreds of them, and you'll get a signal report from each one of them. It'll show up telling you what your signal report is.
Wow. Let's see our next picture if we can get through these, as these are pretty interesting. Suncast, what's next? Looks like a dinner.
Okay. This is a banquet. This is Saturday night. This is a banquet of contesters. And this is held at the Crown Plaza Hotel. And this is every year they give an award for outstanding contester of the year, and all kinds of door prizes for. They gave away several very nice door prize. One of them was a radio, a 7610 ICOM, for instance.
Oh gosh, wow.
That's a $3,000 radio. That was the door prize. And
wow.
So it's not you're just not going to walk away with a little bag of candy or something. It's quite a thing.
Let's hear it. We're going to get to the last pick, the logo that you told me about, but let's continue our picks until we get to that. Oh, what's this?
Okay. This every year the Kansas City DX Club does what they call a CW pileup contest. This is where they put together an audio file, and it has all kinds of call signs being sent at the same time. This is on code on CW, and they take 5 people at a time into a silent and little room. You put on headphones, you're in front of a laptop, and you type in the call signs as you hear them. But they're not all being sent individually. They're being sent on top of one another. So you hear this mishmash of all kinds of different tones, and you hear static at the same time. Some of the signals will be chirpy. They'll be buzzy. There's all kinds of things that they do, and it's a competition, and the person who wins this competition wins a radio. So, and not just a piece of crap radio. I'm talking about a $2,000, $3,000 radio. It's a big deal. So I was in and did the competition. I was in the top. This was early on when this picture was taken. I was like number 8, I think. I can't remember.
In that picture you were number 8. Did you move up or move down as things went along?
No, I moved down because there were some guys who came in, WI9WI, or W9WI from, he's an engineer there in Nashville.
Okay.
He's a TV engineer in Nashville, Doug. He came in.
Doug Smith?
Yeah, W9WI. Yeah. I think
Okay.
that's who he is. I think he works for Channel 4.
If it's Doug Smith at Channel 4, I sure do know him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Long hair?
Yep. That's Doug.
That's him. Yeah. Well, I think he's the one who won.
Oh my gosh. I'll have to say hi to him about that when I see him again.
Yeah. I think he's the one who won, but he always does. If he doesn't win, he's always in the top 2 or 3. But
he's an amazing engineer. If we branch off into a TV-oriented TWiRT show, we're definitely going to get Doug Smith on.
Yeah, he's pretty good. But that's just it's an annual thing. It's a tradition that a lot of guys go up to there. They actually have a hospitality suite in the hotel, and they have beverages and whatnot, and a lot of fellowship going on. And and then that's part of their thing is that the Kansas City DX Club pilot competition. It's just a lot of fun. So you have to accurately copy as many call signs as you can. They have a little computer program that scores it, and that's what determines the winner. And that screenshot I took, they have a TV in the area where all the people are, not where the 5 participants are, but that keeps a score. It's a scoreboard of what's going on, and who's winning.
Almost like a horse race.
A lot of fun.
Get to root for your favorite.
It is.
Can I bet on the winner?
I would. Yeah, I bet on Doug.
I bet on Doug. What's that? What's our next picture here, Suncast?
That's the paddle I bought. That is the paddle I bought. Yeah.
What is the name on what's the ZNSL?
That's just the model name, the model number of it.
Okay.
But it's that particular one I bought, and the thing weighs about 12 pounds, believe it or not.
Oh, gee, me.
Because you don't want it moving around on the table.
Sure. So you want to slap it fast and have it be still, and while you're doing your thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was that. So the two purchases I made was the SDR and that paddle.
Suncast, what's next? Yes, we want to talk about this for a minute. What is WRTC?
Yep.
Not a radio station.
This is no, this is not a radio station. This is a competition. It's held every 4 years, and it's the World Radio Team Championship. It is it's contesting, and there are 61 teams, I believe it is this year. Each team has a referee, and I'm going to be a referee. And this is being held in Wittenberg, Germany. I was lucky enough to be selected to be a referee. I've been a referee at one in Brazil in 2006, and then New England in 2014. And this year it's being held in Wittenberg, Germany. And my wife and I will be traveling to Europe for that. And it's a 24-hour contest, and it's work as many people as you can, in as many zones as you can, and then there's a little twist to this because each country has a headquarters station. Like in the United States, our national ham radio organization is ARRL, American Radio Relay League. Their call sign is always W1AW. That's the call sign for the American Radio Relay League. And then there will be other countries will have what they call HQ stations, headquarters stations. Croatia will have on 9A0 HQ. Other countries use different call signs, but you get special points for working the headquarters, what are called headquarters stations of each of the countries too. And it's a big deal. It's the Olympics of ham radio, and it's pretty good deal. And I'm really looking forward to that. It's we're going to take a couple of days. We're going to fly to Prague, and we'll stay in Prague, and then go from Prague up to Wittenberg. And then when we finish up in Wittenberg, be there almost a week, and then we're going to drive from Wittenberg to Zagreb, Croatia, to see my friends in Croatia, my ham buddies in Croatia, and then then we're going to drive down, and then fly down to Dubrovnik for a couple of days, which is a beautiful city. If you've ever watched Game of Thrones, a lot of Game of Thrones was filmed in Dubrovnik. And
when you go to Prague, I don't know if you have a chance to, but if you get any way to in Prague to see Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, that installation, there's a whole. There's a whole lot of audio over IP in that place.
Yeah. I saw it before it was audio for IP, but I've seen it, and I've seen it. I've seen a couple of the broadcast facilities in then Czechoslovakia before they were before they separated into two countries. I worked for the State Department as a contractor back in the early '90s and mid '90s, and built some FM stations in the Czech. It was called Czechoslovakia then, and also in Hungary and in Croatia, and so I got to see some of that stuff over there.
Yeah, probably close to 9-10 years ago, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty moved from what they said was a bug-ridden and not insect bugs facility that and they've moved into what looks like a fortress. It looks like it ought to be Fort Knox. It's pretty heavily guarded, retaining wall around it. Anyway, they got like 70 studios in there, and they're all audio over IP. From our friends at Axia. So,
because they have all these different languages and everything they have to do, so they need that many studios.
Yeah. Hey, so Charlie, we've got time when we come back. Was there anything else about WRTC you wanted to say, or was that? I
just wanted to make sure that's a big deal this year. That was a big deal at Dayton for a lot of people. And it's a big deal for me because I'm getting to go and be a referee and participate in it. So they give out gold medals and silver medals and bronze medals for the top three. I was lucky in 2014, the team that I was referee for won the silver medal. They were second place. They were from Slovakia, and they won the silver medal.
Oh, okay. And that was, I noticed in one of the pictures, I think the one with John Antonuk, you had a WRTC 2014 shirt on, a logoed shirt. Must have been when you were referee of that team. At that time.
When I was the ref, they give out all kinds of swag, I guess you'd call it. But one of the things they give you is a shirt. Yeah.
So when we come back, we got one more announcement, and we come back. Charlie, I wonder if you could give us some tips on summertime preparations and the kind of things you're having to do at your transmitter sites in the remaining 8 or 10 minutes that we have left. So you're watching or listening to This Week in Radio Tech, episode 396. It's Kirk Harnack here along with you and Charlie Wooten from Panama City, Florida. He is the director of engineering for the iHeart Group there in Panama City. And as such, he's got plenty of challenges with the usual things that you have, lots of lightning and salty air and, transmitter sites spread here and there. So he's going to talk to us about that coming up. Our show is brought to you in part by our friends at the Telos Alliance, makers of this brand new IP intercom called Infinity. Let's hear about that.
Hi, I'm Martin Deister, Vice President of Business Development and Product Director for Telos Infinity IP Intercom System. Telos Infinity is different to any other intercom system because it's the first IP intercom system that doesn't have a matrix. Great communication within the broadcast environment is essential to TV and radio production. With Telos Infinity, you can link all your production crew, whether it's the director in the production control room, sound guy in the booth, boom operator on the floor, your anchors in the studio, presenters out in the field, weatherman, even your weatherman. Production staff listening to communications audio are hearing crystal clear sounds. It means the nuances of the people communicating with them can be heard all the time. Everything is crystal clear and accurate. The master intercom panels that we've created include multicolor LCD switches. You can use color coding to group IFBs, to group production crew members, your remotes, anybody else. Matrix-free intercom means low cost of entry, low cost of design, low cost of installation from the get-go. With Telos Infinity, you start saving money the moment you install it, and you continue to save money for the life of the product. The same benefits that broadcasters all around the world have found by using audio over IP now apply to intercom for the very first time. Never before have you been able to communicate using program quality audio simply by connecting two devices into a network switch. It truly is plug and play. Programming an intercom system has never been easier than it is with Telos Infinity. With our advanced dashboard programming utility, you can have your intercom system out of the box and up and running in record time. I'm Martin Deister, inviting you to visit telosalliance.com to learn more about Telos Infinity Broadcast Optimized Intercom System, the first matrix-free IP intercom system optimized for broadcast.
And intercom isn't just for television. There are at least already 2 major radio installations in the U.S. installing the Infinity IP intercom, and we'll bring you stories about those coming up over the next few weeks. I'm really excited about those. Matrix-free intercoms, and if you've ever dealt with intercom, that matrix in the middle, so expensive, and we're networking all that, just like everything else. So it really works well. Thanks a lot to Telos and the Infinity IP Intercom, award-winning, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. We really appreciate that. All right, we're here with Charlie Wooten in our final minutes. Charlie, let's talk broadcasting instead of ham radio for a few minutes. I noticed as soon as you got back from Hamvention, you were out at the transmitter site where you did the SAP. You couldn't get away from ham radio. You had to get on that thing while you were doing some broadcasting work, right?
Yeah, I did. It's funny. I was lucky, but I have to thank Randy Moore from Tallahassee for being on this call for me while I was away. But luckily, there were no failures while I was away. But I did a little maintenance the other night. That was scheduled maintenance, and something I wanted to talk about with summertime, and more so in the South, but probably as far as summertime is concerned, because down here we have to air condition our transmitter buildings year round in our part of the South. Yeah. Maybe up further north it's not so necessary, but we have to, and something that that air conditioner sits there and it's out there usually in the middle of the woods, and it's not getting a whole lot of attention. And over the years, dirt and dust will develop on your coils on the outdoor unit, and I don't run into very many transmitter sites where you have running water. Maybe I'm just in the wrong part of the country for it, but I would say I've only been to maybe 1 or 2 transmitter sites in my whole professional life that had running water,
right?
Or bathroom, for that matter.
Yeah.
But you have to have water. You have to have a way of putting it on with pressure. So you have to clean those coils. If you don't, you're going to have high pressure switches that are going to click on, and your compressor's going to stop. Then you're going to have a heat problem. There are companies, not all my main air conditioning person that I use here, or company that I use, doesn't have the facilities to go out with a trailer with a tank on it, with a pump, with the sprayer, to do the work that needs to be done on a 10-ton air conditioner, which has a huge coil in it. So I had to find someone to do that. And at this particular site, which we leased from Crown Castle, I knew there was a air conditioning, although we own our air conditioner that we use at this Crown Castle site. I know they did air conditioning work at other sites for Crown Castle. So I contacted them in Tallahassee, and they sent a guy over, and he had the rig right there on his truck, tank, everything, just pulled up to the site, had 85 gallons of water. You spray it on, not at super high pressure, but pretty good little pressure, and then you watch all this dirt and gunk come out of your coils, and you say, how the hell was that thing cooling in the first place?
Really?
Wow. And then you're not through. That's just step one. Step two is he then takes a little pump sprayer, and he sprays acid. I don't know what the name of the acid is, but it's whatever air conditioning people use. And they spray it on there onto the coils and let it sit for just a minute or two. And then you rinse it again. Now, the second rinse is very important because you got to make sure you get every little bit of that acid off of the coils. But once that's done, your air conditioner will be operating more efficiently, and your compressor will be a lot happier with its pressures that it has to deal with. And, that's something that is very important. The air conditioner sits there and is working. You never think about, well, why should I do what, I mean, if it's broke, don't fix it. Well, it may not be broke, but it's not working as efficiently as it should. And it takes, in the case of a location where you don't have the water or the water pressure or the facilities to do it yourself, you need to get that done. If you know of someone who does it, if you're air conditioning contractor, if you happen to lease from Crown Castle or American Tower, whoever, they usually have contractors you can contact, and they'll do it obviously for a price, but you need to have that done. It'll help your air conditioner last a lot longer, and it'll operate a lot more efficiently, and your transmitter will be happier because it's got some nice cool air to operate in. Because I'm probably going to get some people that are going to roll their eyes when I say this, but I like to keep my transmitter room at 78 degrees.
No, this stuff's going to last a lot longer that way. Sure is.
I mean, I've been in transmitter sites, where they've got the air conditioner set at 85. Well, my alarm goes up. My alarm to call me and let me know I've got an air conditioning problem goes off at 85. That's just the way I am. I like 78 degrees, and that's what I like to keep my transmitter building at. Now, my rack room, I like to hang beef in there. I like it to be about 71.
Wow.
But I mean, it's just, you're going to have less equipment failure. I just like it that way.
Well,
But,
no, I think it's very smart. And if you got these transmitter sites where you've got several transmitters in there, maybe you and maybe other stations as well. I mean, think of your transmitter might cost $60,000, $90,000, whatever it is. But you add the several transmitters together. I mean, there's a lot of value there. And if you can extend the life of everything by 10%, 15%, 20%, maybe 30%, as compared with even transfer sites that do ambient air. Oh my gosh, you're looking at 90-degree air in there a lot of the time, or even more. Even if you're blowing it through, you're still looking at a lot of heat. And the parts will, especially capacitors, we all know that. And the downside of all the dust and dirt. If you can have a closed system that is kept cool, yes, you're paying money for that electricity, but yes, you're extending the life of some very expensive equipment.
Well, and tube life too. Whatever that delta change in between the input air and the output air, if you're moving heat, then you're helping that tube to last longer.
So we got to go, Charlie. I guess if you want to leave our listeners, we try to leave them with one great piece of advice. Sounds like you just gave it with. Do what you got to do to be clean and keep it cool. And then, of course, you got to maintain those air conditioners. Do you typically have 2 air conditioners at a site, or even more than 2?
Yes. I always have 2 at every site, because if you don't, you're going to mess up. And there's a little station that I do work on the side for up in Alabama, and they found that out weekend before last. They had 1 air conditioner, and when I put a Harris Z5 in there about 15 years ago. And when I put it in, I went to W.W. Granger and I bought a manual little thermostat switch made by Dayton. And I set that thing at 95 degrees. And when it got 95 degrees and it hooked that up to the interlock on the Z5. And when it got to 95 degrees, the Z5 shut off. And they went out to the transmitter site to see what was wrong. Hey, we're off the air. And they found out that 1 air conditioner that they had put in had failed. But at least it turned off the equipment and kept anything from happening.
Yeah. Well, transmitters can burn themselves up, shorten their lives badly, or end it right there.
Yeah, they can do that. I really don't have anything else to add. I will say that I'm the owner of a new right knee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that the rehab can be awfully painful in getting things to come back together. My dad had that done.
Yeah, it's interesting, but and one other quick thing, if there are any people listening in the Florida Panhandle, South Alabama, Southwest Georgia area who aren't members of SBE and would like to become members of a new SBE chapter, we're in the process of trying to start one that would cover Tallahassee, Panama City, and Dothan, Alabama, in that general area. They can contact me, Charlie Wooten at iHeartMedia.com, and I'll get you in touch with the person who is ramrodding that. But we're trying to get a chapter going here in this area.
Any idea what that chapter number will be? I guess not yet.
No, I don't think we have a chapter. We're still in the process of getting the word out and having our initial meeting. I think we have to have 10 people, I think it is, to make the muster on that. But
might that be called the Florida Panhandle chapter, if you want to give it a name?
I don't know what we're going to call it, but it'll probably be something like that, or Lower Alabama. Yeah. No, it'll probably be Panama City, Tallahassee, or something. I'm not sure what we'll call it. Maybe Florida Panhandle.
Listen, as an elected member of the board, I salute you for putting that together. That's going to be awesome, and I hope it goes really well, and we'll promote that.
All right, great.
All right, good deal. Charlie, we got to go. Thank you so much for on short notice being my guest today on the show. I really do appreciate that. Thank you for your stories of Hamvention and the great advice about keeping things cool at the transmitter site. It is worth it. It's hard to convince ownership of that sometimes, but oh my goodness, the payoff is really there.
I enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you, Charlie. Our show, This Week in Radio Tech, has been brought to you by our friends at Lavo. Go to lavo.com/TWiRT. Take you right to the radio products page. Also brought to you by my friends at the Telos Alliance, makers of the new IP intercom system known as Infinity, and lots of other IP audio innovations, especially the entire LiveWire infrastructure, just doing amazing things. I use it at all my stations. We got to give our thanks also to Suncast, the producer of our show, and to Andrew Zarian, the founder of the GFQ Network. Really appreciate you guys. Next week, I'll be coming to you from Riga, Latvia, and we have a guest on, pretty interesting guest, a little bit out of the ordinary for radio technology, but has to do with audio, and we'll tell you more about that as we get closer to it. And Chris Tobin will be back as well. So we'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.